What's up, YouTube? I'm here doing my prediction video for UFC Fight Night Costa versus Vettori. Let's start the bottom. The first fight is Jonathan Martinez versus Zavid Lavashvili. To me, Lavashvili is a really good grappler, but that's about it. I think Martinez should be able to stuff the takedowns and outpoint this guy in the feet. You never know. Lavashvili is a really, really strong wrestler, and he could just take Martinez down repeatedly. My one and only fear is how short notice he's taking this fight, and because of that, I'm leaning towards Martinez to stuff the takedowns, keep him on the feet, and just outpoint him and eventually probably either win by decision or knockout. Next is Lavia Souza versus Randa Marcos. And to me, both these chicks are primarily grapplers, and I just think Souza's the better grappler. There's not too much to say about this fight other than that. I just think Souza will win the grappling exchanges and probably win a decision or maybe even get a late submission. Next is Jeff Molina versus Daniel Liccardo. And these are like your typical flyweights. They're both really solid everywhere. There's no real holes in their games. I just think Jeff Molina is a little bit better. This is another fight where I don't know. There's not too much to say. I think they're both really good. They're solid everywhere, but I do think Jeff Molina is just the better guy, especially in terms of putting out output. I think he has a higher strike volume, and I think he's just going to edge out all 3 rounds and win a solid decision, maybe get a late finish. Next, we got Kama Worthy versus Jai Herbert, and to me, I think this is kind of who can do what. If Jai can keep this fight long in that range and mix in some grappling here and there, I think he'll win. I think if Kama can just kind of land his combinations, he'll win, because I think Kama is the heavier hitter. I think Jai is the more technical guy. Overall, it's really close. I'm leaning towards Kama. I think he's faster and he hits harder, and that's going to be the biggest difference. I think as long as he doesn't get hit with a big counter, his speed and heavier punching power is going to be the difference. Because I don't think there's a huge advantage in terms of overall striking for Jai. I just think he is the better technical striker. I'd say he probably has a bigger advantage on the ground overall, but I don't like Kama Worthy's not super easy to take down, and it's not like he's ever been submitted. Like he's a solid grappler in his own right. He's just not an amazing grappler. I'm not saying Jai's amazing either, I just think he's better. But overall, I think Kama's just the faster, harder hitting guy, and I think he's going to eventually catch Jai. So I'm going to pick Kama to win by knockout. Next, we got Jamie Pickett versus Leandro Staropoli, and my thing is I think Pickett tends to gas the longer fights go. I don't think he can keep the same pace in the early rounds as he does in the later rounds, as where Staropoli keeps the same pace all 3 rounds. And I think that's going to be the difference. I think that the first round and a half will be close, but I think Staropoli is going to start to pull ahead as it goes. And I think Staropoli will probably get like a late second, early third round finish, just because of his better conditioning. I think overall striking-wise, they're even. Neither guys are great grapplers. I don't think either one of them will be able to take each other down and hold them down. It's just going to be a back-and-forth kickboxing fight. Like I said, I got Staropoli by third round TKO. Next is Tabitha Ricci versus Marina Oliveira. There's not a ton to say about this fight. I think both these chicks are just okay. I'm leaning towards Ricci. I think she's just better overall. I don't know too much about either of these chicks. It's just kind of, I think Ricci's the stronger fighter overall, and I'm going to pick her to win by decision. Next is David Onama versus Mason Johns. And to me, David's a solid fighter. He's pretty good everywhere. I think he's primarily a boxer, but he has good wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I wouldn't say jiu-jitsu. It's more like that, like, get back to his feet type of wrestling. Mason Johns is kind of the same. I just think Mason Johns is better overall. I think his striking is a little bit better. His wrestling's a little bit better. And his overall grappling is just a bit better. I think this is a tougher fight than who Mason Johns was supposed to fight, because it was that guy he was destroying until he accidentally poked him in the eye, and then the guy said he couldn't fight. Like, I mean, Mason Johns is going to win that fight by TKO sooner or later. It's just he accidentally poked the guy in the eye, and then the guy gave up. Like, David is 8-0 or 9-0, I can't remember, but he's solid, and I think Mason is going to win this fight. I think it'll be competitive for a while, but I think towards the end, Mason's going to start wearing on him with his better wrestling, and I think that he's going to eventually win by submission or TKO from ground and pound. So I'm going to pick Mason Johns by second or third round finish. Next is Jun Young Park versus Gregory. I can't say his last name. These guys are both solid strikers and wrestlers, but I'm leaning towards Park. I just think he's a little bit better overall. I don't think there's a ton to say about this fight. I think it's going to have some back and forth wrestling, but overall I think Park will just win those exchanges and just win a decision. On the main card, the first is Nikolai, I can't say his last name, versus Ike Villanueva, and this is just two strikers going at it. I think Nikolai, the biggest thing is he tends to slow a little bit as the fight goes on. Ike does too, but I think Ike is a little bit better of a striker. There's not a ton to say about this fight. I think they're both just going to go out there and throw hands, and whoever lands the bigger strike first is going to win. And I'm just leaning towards Ike. I think he's a little bit better of a striker, as where Nikolai's just more of a brawler. And I think Ike's going to eventually win by knockout or TKO. Next, we got Grant Dawson versus Francisco Trinaldo, and both these guys are solid strikers. My biggest thing is Grant sometimes is super hesitant to pull the trigger, and that screws him in decisions. And I think that's what's going to happen in this fight. I think Trinaldo is just going to be a little bit more active, and I wouldn't be shocked if Trinaldo lands a takedown here and there, because he is the better wrestler in my opinion. And I just see Trinaldo getting a close decision, probably 29-28, just from being more active and just mixing in some grappling here and there. Dwight could catch Trinaldo, but I feel like that goes both ways. Trinaldo's not like a horrible striker or anything. He's really good. It's just he's a tiny bit undersized for welterweight, and that's his one and only problem. But I think that overall striking-wise, these guys are pretty close. Grant, I think, just hits a bit harder, but I think Trinaldo's the more well-rounded fighter. And I think he's just going to edge out a close decision, so I'm going to pick Trinaldo. Next is Alex Caceres versus Sungwoo Choi, and my thing is this fight is pretty close on the feet. I think overall striking-wise, these guys are close. Choi just definitely hits harder, and that's what's going to favor him. But my biggest thing is the grappling. I think Caceres is significantly better on the ground. He's not the greatest wrestler, but I do feel like Caceres is working on that. It's not that he's gotten better at wrestling. It's more like he's like GSP style timing his takedowns better. And that's why he does hit takedowns when he needs to more often now. And I think that's all he really needs to do in this fight. I think as long as he's smart and mixes his grappling with his striking, he'll win this fight. Because I think on the ground he's a lot better than Choi is. I don't know if he'll submit Choi, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's able to just kind of control him on the ground and, you know, threaten with submissions and just get the rounds that way. I think it'll be back and forth, but like I said, as long as Caceres is smart and uses his grappling, he should win this fight by decision. So I'm going to pick Caceres by decision. Next is Jessica Rose Clark versus Jocelyn Edwards, and this is basically just two pretty solid strikers going at it. I'm picking Clark just because I think she's overall better, and Clark does have the better ground game in my opinion, and it's kind of like the Caceres fight. On the feet, it'll be back and forth, but as long as Clark kind of mixes in takedowns and just uses some solid top game stuff, she should win a 30-27 decision, so I'm going to pick Clark to win by decision. Next is Grant Dawson versus Rick Glenn, and my biggest thing is Grant is not a great striker. He's improving, but he's not really that good. Rick Glenn is a really great striker, and his takedown defense and ability to get back up to his feet has been getting better and better every fight, in my opinion. And I think that overall, Glenn is the better fighter, because Grant Dawson's biggest strength is just wearing guys out and finishing them on the ground. I think if Glenn can kind of just keep him off of him a little bit and force the striking, he'll win by knockout. And I think this is going to happen. I think that Glenn will be able to force separations and just start lighting Dawson up with some big strikes as the fight goes on. And I think Glenn's going to win by knockout or TKO in the second or third round. Because at the end of the day, there's a reason why Grant was fighting at featherweight. He honestly doesn't look like he's that big of a lightweight. And I think when he starts fighting some of the bigger guys like Glenn and stuff like that, he's going to have a harder time taking them down. And the guys who are clearly better strikers than him, like Glenn, will start picking him apart. So I'm going to pick Glenn to win by knockout or TKO. Finally, we got the main event, Paulo Costa versus Marvin Vettori. Obviously, these guys are middleweights, but Costa was like 215 or something like that the day before the weigh-ins. So the fight had to be moved up to 205. As far as I know, Marvin Vettori is getting like the weight miss money, like which is 20 or 30% of Costa's purse. At the end of the day, I don't think it matters because this favors Costa so much. The fact that he didn't have to put in any work in the cutting the weight when he's the naturally bigger man instantly favors him. Like, I don't know what Vettori weighed in at, but it was probably barely 200 pounds. Like, Vettori is a clear middleweight. And he was probably cutting like normal up until, like, I think he only knew about this a few days ago. Either way, I always thought this fight was going to be close. I think the biggest thing is if Vettori can take Costa down, he's going to have a massive advantage. Costa's got solid takedown defense, but, you know, like I said, if Vettori's on top of him, Vettori's going to be crushing him. On the feet, it's close. I think Vettori throws better volume, but Costa definitely hits harder. So it's really close in that sense, but my biggest thing is I don't think Costa trained for this fight. I think he's been on the downswing for the last, like, 2 years. Like, that fight with Izzy was horrible, and he hasn't fought since, and now he came in so far overweight. I think Costa's going to slow down sooner or later, and Vettori's going to take him down and just punish him on the ground. And I think Vettori will get like a 3rd or 4th round TKO win from ground and pound. I think the fight will be fun up until Vettori starts to take over with his wrestling. And when that happens, I think he's going to finish Costa. And that's pretty much it. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.